Greetings, dear ones. I'm Cryon of Magnetic Service. The teacher and evolutionary Peggy has stewarded an amazing work on this planet. One of the only ones to truly bring together and define the patterns of who you are, of an integration of human and spirit in a way you can see and visualize, use. In the very phases of her teaching represent the maturity steps of her life. She congratulates humanity, as I do. I want to continue this whole thing about the relationship to what you must call the other side of the veil, God, Spirit, creation, creative source. There is a relationship there, dear ones. There really is. This will be, again, a plea for common spiritual sense, a plea. As once again, I bring you, piece by piece, the building of a logic for the beauty and magnificence of a human being. For that's not what you were taught. It just isn't. It's so interesting, is it not, that you were built for linearity. This mind and this consciousness that you all have is linear. It has to be. For you to get up in the morning and do the things that you do to exist, to work in the workplace, or to build the things that you do, or to raise the children that you have, there must be linearity. This is the structure of the thinking that is human, appropriate, beautiful, and for your time. In that linearity, you do realize that everything that you think of must have a beginning and an end. I want you to think of that for just a moment. Do you know of anything on this planet, in your house, in your life, that is apart from that? Every single thing must have a beginning and an end. So this is the thinking we speak of, and it suits you. Again, it's practical and you must have it. But where it gets in the way is when you start to think about bigger things, things that are evolved, things that perhaps are not your life. The things of God, perhaps, of spirit, creative source, perhaps. When you think of an angel, do you think of when the angel began and when the angel will end? And the answer is no. If you think about God, do you think there was a beginning, and when will it end? And these things are out of the purview of your understanding or consciousness, and the answer is, well, you don't think about it, because it's above everything that you can imagine or believe or work with mentally. And it doesn't seem to bother you. Everything you say here, that you look at in the sky even, has to have a beginning and an end. You heard about the Big Bang? You say, suddenly from nothing became everything. And you go with it. And you say, yep, that sounds about right. Without thinking, okay, let's go back to the beginning of that nothing. How could nothing be there and create everything? There had to be something there, a seed, perhaps, which expanded to everything. Because that's a beginning, is it not? And yet you accept that it makes no sense at all, that coming from nothing, there would be everything. We've explained this before. It was not a beginning, it was a continuation. These are things that even your astronomers are starting to see in their physics. Perhaps there are multiverses that actually collide with one another, and the membranes of dimensionality will collide in a certain way as to cross over into what you call a Big Bang and start another universe. Now, is that a beginning? Or is it a continuation? And if it is a continuation, where was the beginning of the first one? Was there a first one? What if I told you no? I want you to think for a moment of something that you could put in front of you. Anything. And visualize it, and I tell you that it's eternal in both directions. That means it never had a beginning, it will never have an ending. And some will say, well, I'll do best if I could envision a circle. A circle is like that, no beginning and an end. But the high thinkers and the logistics of all of that will be voided when somebody says, yes, but who made the circle? Because that had to be then a beginning. And then you would say, okay, that's the beginning of the circle, but what about the one who made it? So you get into these discussions that go nowhere except to say one thing: you really don't understand it, do you? You can't, because you're linear. That's being linear. It is nothing to be ashamed of. And when we say, oh, linear human being, we just are giving a designation, not a judgment. That's how you think. But oh boy, does it get in the way of something so incredibly beautiful: your soul. Let's talk some more about your soul. How would you define it? What were you told about it? What really is it? Does it have a shape or a size? And the answer is no. Is it linear? The answer is no. Does it have a beginning? Now, dear ones, here we get into that which I've told you so many times is the linear thinking spiritualist who decides that everything, even spiritually, has to have a beginning and an end. Therefore, that soul, that eternal soul, that piece of the Creator, for some, you are told, begins at birth. Sounds a lot like the Big Bang, doesn't it? From absolutely nothing, you get everything. You're born, take a breath, and you have a soul. That's what you're taught. You know that. That is the teaching of the day. That you were nothing and never were, never could be, whatever, and you take your first breath and you have a soul. And the soul is enormous and beautiful, and sparks fly out of it from the love of God and all that, and it never was. You had to take a breath, and there it was. And every one of you know what you were told about the ending of your soul. That beautiful, loving God who created you and is part of your soul, in so many belief systems, then judges you and takes that soul into hell. And you're burned alive every day. It's a nice story for kids, isn't it? Have you told yours yet about that? If you haven't, there will be others who will. That is the linearity, the thinking, the children's story of humanity and God. It doesn't make sense. I want a plea for common spiritual sense and the love of God. I want to plea with you to think out of linearity for a moment and think about the incredible truth that could be there, that could be there. Listen, listen. What if you were, your name goes here, on your soul, what if you were eternal in both directions? Instead of having a breath and receiving a soul somehow magically, like the Big Bang, instead of that, What if you always were? And if you always were, what else do you know about that always was? And the answer is the creator of all things, that loving God that knows your name. Now you're starting to understand why your name is known. That name that is sung in light. Every single one of you, all the billions on the planet known by God personally, intimately, every one of you, what you're thinking, what you're going through. With free choice, you have the option to know it or not, to see it or not, to use it or not. Oh, but that doesn't keep it from being true. If indeed your soul is eternal in both directions, that means you are part of the Creator. You are. There's nothing else that is that way. There is nothing else that is eternal in both directions except God. Are you understanding this? You are a creature of God. Think for a moment of that source as big as you could think, which represents God, the Creator. Think for a moment, whatever that is, whether it's a field, bigger than the universe, all multiverses, whatever it is, think of it as also containing trillions and trillions and trillions of pieces and parts that all meld together, called love and compassion, and occasionally they break off on their own and they come to a planet, and one of them is called Earth. And in that breaking off, they're really not broken at all. They're multidimensional and they're part of the whole. You're still part of the whole, you know. You're still part of that which is God, you know. This is the truth. You did not get a soul at birth. It always was. It's always then part of the creative source. Always, always. And when this life is over, the corporeal life is over, it returns all the pieces. They return to that creative source, that beauty, that compassion, that love. There is a bigger plan, dear ones, than anything you were ever told by any belief system on the planet, especially the one that has you being burned alive. And in that, there is magnificence, because that means God knows you as God. Great criticism has been piled upon the channels of Cryon. To say, you know, Cryon says that humans are God. You are a piece of the Creator. Yes, you are. What else would you be if you had a soul? What else? And that means that in this soul, there is the beauty and the compassion of all there is, who looks you in the eye and says, I know you. I see you. Why don't you come on over? While you're alive, take my hand, it says, with free choice to see if that corporeal human can raise itself in a vibration that starts to change absolutely everything about you. The teacher Peggy says you are an evolutionary. You are. The teacher Peggy. She talks about this and always has, the evolvement of consciousness, of reality, to one day you may even wake up and realize you are an ascended being, created from the source which is God, and one who will return there. And in the process called life on earth, there is so much good to see and find and use and be. Extended life, health, peace. I'll be back in a moment. Probably to continue talking about this, just to let you know who you are. And that relationship you don't even suspect is there. You don't even suspect it's there, because often you stand apart from it, wringing your hands, wanting to know more about it, not understanding It's next to you if you'd simply relax with it and let it be. I'm crying a magnetic service in love with humanity. And so it is.